If you've ever missed a checkmate and only seen it after the game, this series is for you. We are going through all 4 chapters of the Lichess Checkmate Pattern Trainer in order. We're on episode 1, covering the first chapter. Each chapter introduces a set of named checkmate patterns. Just like when you learn your openings, knowing the name of a checkmate pattern makes it a lot easier to find and train. For each individual pattern, I'll name it. Then we'll solve several puzzles built around that idea, starting off super simple and then leveling up the difficulty as we go. If you want this to actually stick in your long-term memory, pause before each video and try and solve it before I explain the answer and show the pattern. We are jumping straight into a level 3 hookmate puzzle here on the screen. Not because it is easy, but to show how much clearer the position becomes after solving the first and second puzzle. Don't worry, I'll show you where to find these puzzles on Lichess later on in the video and give you tips on how to space practice or woodpecker method this entire series if you want to carry on at your own pace instead of waiting for the next video. Pause here if you want to try and solve this one, and let's get going. The pattern to identify here is that the knight is so close to the king, and you want to magically teleport your rook here. This is what we call a hookmate. Knight's defending the rook, catching the king as bait. If you know the pattern ahead of time, you can easily find the move queen to c8, because you know you don't actually need the queen, and then we can follow up with the rook. Now, they have 2 options here. Let's see which way the computer goes. Okay, so the computer goes this way. If they went this way, we also had a hookmate here. This pattern here with the pawn supporting. But we've got a hookmate here, like so. Now, if we go back to a level 1 hookmate, just to explain the example, it's this pattern again. Rook comes in, catching the king as bait. We play that one like so. Now, level 2 hookmate, it's just slightly more pieces, but similar theme. Pause if you want to try and solve this one. We've got all these sort of hookmate patterns going on here. First, we can sacrifice this rook. Bishop's going to take. Bring in our other rook. They're going to block. And then we've got our hookmate like so. So start trying to look for these patterns in your own games. This also increases the coordination between your knights and your rooks, and also your queen. You'll find in endgames, you just see moves a lot quicker and clearer if you practice hookmates. So that's why I started with this. It's very good for your endgames as well. Okay, so that was level 1 and level 2. So we're back to level 3, which you'll find this one a lot easier now, right? But without knowing this hookmate kind of pattern ahead of time, it's quite difficult to find this puzzle. We've already solved this one, so we'll move on. And we'll start at level 1. There's 4 levels for this one. So level 1's quite easy. We have what we call an Anastasia's Mate. You might confuse this with Arabian Mate, but it is slightly different. So Anastasia's Mate is when the knight restricts the king like so the rook can come over for a checkmate here. Essentially, the knight is creating a wall of pawns here, similar to a back rank checkmate, but on the side. We'll get to back rank very soon. I didn't want to start with that because I felt like I'd lose most of the audience if you've done Puzzle Rush before, because there's a lot in those. So then rook just slides over here for Anastasia's Mate in 1. All right, level 2, and we have an Anastasia's Mate in 2 now. We just need to build up on the concept of an Anastasia's Mate. So if you know this basic pattern, you'll see this here and go, oh, okay, I just need to get rid of this pawn. We can do that by sacrificing the queen, leading the king down, and we follow up. We've transposed into the previous puzzle with a random bishop here for no reason to make it a little bit more difficult. So we can come in for the Anastasia's Mate in 2. Now we have Anastasia's Mate in 3. We just need to add one more concept on top. You can see we're almost transposing into the other puzzle, but first off, the queen sacrifice first doesn't work. Instead, we need to give the check first to force the king over. And now we've transposed into the last puzzle, sacrifice the queen again, and the rook can come in. We have another Anastasia's Mate in 3. In theory, you should find this quicker than the last one, but we'll see what happens. We're essentially doing the same thing. This is a bunch more pieces on the board to throw you off and increase the difficulty. And we switched sides of the board. So we give the check first to force the king over. We set up our knight. You notice this is the common theme, to set up a sacrifice, bring him down so our rook can slide on over here for the Anastasia's Mate. We have a pretty simple one here. This is what we call a blind swine mate. Why is it called a blind swine mate? The name of this pattern was coined by a Polish master, I'm probably butchering this name, Dawid Janowski. We have a term in chess called pigs on the 7th rank because these rooks are greedy and they gobble up all the pawns. So they're pigs. And another name for a pig is swine. So we call this blind swine mate because they're not just gobbling up the pawns, they're going for checkmate. They're blind, they're angry with rage, they want to checkmate the king. So this is a blind swine mate. Key idea is you'll notice that this square is blocked so the king can't run. Otherwise, you could force a draw in those kinds of positions. Not that you want to draw here because you've got the extra rook. But you just doing this sort of thing. You can get this anywhere in the board, but this is the concept. Your two rooks team up and the king can't escape this way. And you'll see this in a range of different ways. So that's level 1. Okay, now we have a blind swine mate in 6. Pause if you want to try and solve this one. This is from a game actually, from Rudolf Swiderski and Aaron Nimzovich in 1905. And the game's actually linked here as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, blind swine mate, we need our pigs on the 7th rank, right? So let's use the coordination of our knight and rook, which we gain from doing a lot of hook mates, seeing it's defended instantly. Force the king over, noticing the rook's blocking again. Next move, we're going to set up our other rook here. Just, you got to check, obviously, to make sure our king is not in danger. There's no checks on us, so we have time to do this kind of slow move. Setting up the checkmate. They're going to throw away a bunch of pieces here. Not very important. It's just a computer doing its thing. Okay, and now, you'll notice they got rid of the rook here, which is usually that's part of what we need to checkmate. But our knight is doing the job of taking away that square. So we can give the check, king goes over, and blind swine mate in the corner. Now we have a blind swine mate in 5 on level 3 difficulty. This is from Vasily Ivanchuk and Levon Aronian in 2006. You might be tempted to try and grab the rook here, but we actually have a forced checkmate here. So what we do is we take the pawn here. And it's interesting, you might think that's a weird move. Why don't they just take? The reason why they don't take here is we come up with the rook for check. The king can't go down because the knight's restricting. So the rook would have to come back, but then we can just take it with our rook there. And this is a pattern we haven't gotten to yet. It'll be coming up soon. It's similar to an Arabian mate style checkmate pattern. So that's why that doesn't work. Instead they give the check. The tricky part about this puzzle is figuring out where to put your king. You don't really want to waste time putting it here because you know there is a check on the next move. So to me, the safest square looks like H3. Let's give it a go. They don't have much else going on, so now we can start following up with our blind swine mate. We give the check, they move over, and we come in and finish them off using the knight here as the restricting piece. Smothered mate, level 1. All these pieces are trying to help the king. We're like, we got you, we're keeping you safe, but they're just getting in the way. We're helping. No, you're not, because we got a smothered mate in the corner, mate in 1. Okay, now next level, we need to set up a smothered mate in 2. Pause if you want to try and find it. We sacrifice the queen here to set up the smothered mate. The queen has to take because the knight was defending it, so the king can't take. And we have transposed into a similar puzzle where we smother the king. All right, level 3, we have a smothered mate in 2. This game is from Alexander Grishuk taking on Ruslan Ponomarov in 2000. We know we're going for a smothered mate. Taking advantage of this battery is we can sacrifice the queen here. King can't take, it's defended, so the rook has to take. We have set up the smother, so we can jump in with the knight. One of the most beautiful smothered mate patterns, we have a smothered mate in 6. This is from Paul Morphy Schrufer in 1859. Pause if you want to solve. The creative idea here is noticing that we have a discovered check with the knight. We need to move it somewhere. The best square is to move it to c5. If the king went here instead of the queen throwing its life away, because the computer knows checkmate is imminent, we would have had checkmate in 1 there. So they threw away the queen. And now they're going to run. This is why we put the knight here. Very important is we need to come back with the knight to give the check, forcing the king into a discovered check again. So the queen is X-raying the king to set up a double check tactic. So now if we move the knight here, it's a double check, meaning we only have to calculate the king moves because you cannot kill 2 pieces at once in chess. So double check tactic, king must move. Again, if they went here, we had checkmate again. Why did we go through all this effort? Well, now we can throw away the queen because the knight's on the ideal square defending it, so the king could not take. And we can finally smother the king. Beautiful. This last checkmate pattern I'll go through very quickly, only because it's in Puzzle Rush a lot, so I don't want to drone on about this too long. I think a lot of you probably already know this. It is, of course, a back rank checkmate. I didn't want to play this first, so you all would have left. This is a rank. It's at the back. Usually you chuck a rook or a queen there for checkmate. The key idea is obviously that these pawns are suffocating the king. Noticing as well that if the knight was here and these pawns were gone, the Anastasia's mate creates a similar pattern. Okay, here it looks like you can take with the rook or the queen, doesn't matter which way. They're going to take just back rank mate in 2. And now, just to get your pattern recognition in, it's on the side. And again, similar, if you had a knight here, it would create a similar pattern if these pawns were gone for an Anastasia's mate, but this is, of course, a back rank mate. Description here in Lichess, it says, perhaps better referred to as a corridor mate rather than a back rank mate. I haven't heard this term before. I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm going to keep referring to it as a back rank because I don't need to get complicated, but that's interesting. And finally, we have back rank mate in 3. This one's very common as well. Just noticing you can't play queen here straight away because we don't have enough firepower. They have 2 defenders. Well, they have 2 defenders. We have 2 attackers. Not enough. So we've got to get the king out of the way first. We do that by giving the check. It's defended by the rook, so the king has to go to the side. Now we can sacrifice and finish off with the back rank mate. And we've looped around now. We're back to the hook mate. I mentioned at the start, if you wanted to find this for yourself, we are just in the learn practice section on Lichess. So you just go to the home page, you go learn, hover over it, down to practice. It's got every important checkmate pattern there, which we're going to go through anyway. Every tactic in chess that you need to know, which I'm going to do after this checkmate pattern series. If we get enough traction, like if only 20 people are watching this, maybe I'll kind of get a bit bored. But if, you know, at least a few decent people are watching this and I'm getting good feedback that you guys are enjoying this series, I'll just keep going. I'll just keep doing the whole thing. I reached out to Lichess and just seeing if I could get permission to do the whole thing, and they were very nice. That's why I like Lichess. They're a charity, not-for-profit organization, so more than happy to accommodate and let a small channel like myself just run through the whole thing. The last few years, I just go around to local schools and I teach chess to mostly beginner and intermediates, some advanced, but not too many. And I find this a great resource. So if you're a coach, definitely worth learning this. There's also a function where you can reset your progress. So I do this with a lot of my private students. I get them to work through the entire thing. I usually don't worry about piece checkmates too much on knight and bishop mate because it's very difficult and I don't know if it's that great of a return on investment, but I get them to go through all the checkmate patterns, all the tactics. I give them a little bit of help with the rook end games, but this is all the stuff you need to learn in chess for the most part. You can just get away with this is your knowledge, go through it. Then there's that big reset your progress button and then just go through it again, space practice, woodpecker method it. How to do it specifically? Well, it depends how much you actually remember and the difficulty level. Like if you find you're struggling on a lot of the puzzles, you could just watch through this series first and then go and solve them once you finish the series, and then you can reset, come back a few days later if it's quite difficult, and then leave it a week, and then leave it 2 weeks. But anyway, that's chapter 1. Episode 2, we're going to cover chapter 2 with a bunch of new patterns and their names. It'll be out soon or may already be out depending on when you're watching this. I might put it in the pinned comment or on the screen if it's already out. In the meantime, feel free to check out my other playlists. Mini Master series covering miniature master games, 25 moves or less from the past. Paul Morphy, all those sort of fellas. And I've got the Laszlo Polgar book I'm running through. I spaced repetition, the best part I found in the book. Feel free to check that out as well because I call out all the checkmate patterns as well. So I put what we're learning here into practice. That's where I learn all the names is from this section, and then I put it into practice. I'll see you in the next chapter.